Good morning and welcome to D for Diving's YouTube channel, where today we're going to have a look at the Garmin X50i full form factor dive computer. Now let's cast our mind back to 2018 when Garmin first launched into the dive computer market with its Garmin Descent MK1 series. At the time, the clear big daddy in the watch style dive computer market was Shearwater with their Terric. It was an awesome piece of kit and nobody in the market could touch it. And then from nowhere, effectively, came Garmin with their color screen, GPS integration, their smartwatch features, and their Bullman model for dive computers. It was quite a game changer. And some might argue that 5 years later, the Shearwater Terric is no more, and Garmin's MK3 series is now absolutely the big daddy in this market space. Garmin have now entered into the full form factor, some would say tech, dive computer market with their X50i. And they're trying to borrow all of the same ideas that they had with the MK series and put it into this space. Now, who are they targeting as a competitor? Well, clearly they're back gunning for Shearwater again, where they're clearly aiming this product against the Shearwater Petrel and the Shearwater Petrel, but also against the Apex DSX too. So when you look at the features that this dive computer's got, they are impressive. But one would expect a dive computer at $1,500 to be damned impressive anyway. So to start with, it's got a 3-inch LCD touchscreen. Touchscreen, I hear you say. How will that work underwater? How will that work with gloves? It won't. It's not designed to work underwater. In underwater mode, navigation is through 4 buttons as opposed to touchscreen. So the touchscreen only works when you're on the surface and if your fingers aren't wet. Otherwise, slippy slidey, like on a mobile phone, it won't work. As I mentioned, it has 4-button navigation, which is really intuitive and easy to use, especially since I'm a Garmin user anyway and I already know the menu structure that they have. If you're coming from a Shearwater to the Garmin, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but not sufficient that you have to get the manual out. It's depth rated to 20 atmospheres. On the literature, on the blurb, that's suggesting 200 meters. We all know we're really looking at 150, 180 maybe, by the time you've got dynamic pressures involved. But that's still well into the realms of technical diving, and certainly beyond the limitations of where most divers are going to go to and where most divers are comfortable. It has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, and so you are able to store a lot of maps, you are able to store a lot of data, a lot of themes, but you're also able to store music and Bluetooth connect it to your earbuds and play music when you're on the boat on the way out there. You don't need to take your phone, you don't need to take an MP3 player. From an algorithm perspective, it's using the tried and tested Bullman ZHL16C with gradient factors, which I think just about all top-end dive computers are using. And from modes, it has single gas, multi-gas, apnea, gauge, and CCR mode. Now that is the same as all of the other Garmin products and a lot of the other competing products as well. But one thing that it doesn't have in that mode structure, which the Shearwater Petrel does, is the ability through 4-pin connectors to hardwire in PO2 sensors. Now, I'm personally looking for that type of functionality as I dive rebreather, and I use a Shearwater Petrel as my PO2 monitor when I'm diving on the CCR. If the X50i Mark II came out with that connectivity, then it might be that I would consider switching for all of the extra features and functionality. Of course, it has AI via its T2 transmitter, which is using the SubWave sonar technology that it's pioneered for the MK series. They're expensive too, at $500 a pop, which means that this dive computer rocks in at a steady $2,000 if you're looking at the computer and the T2 transmitter. It'll take up to 8 transmitters, so you can clearly see what your buddy's doing, but I'll come on to that in a moment. With the AI though, of course, you can see how much air you've got left. It will tell you what your SAC rate is, and will tell you how much air you've got left in your tank in minutes based on your current diving depth and breathing patterns. One of the things I love about the Garmin computers, and this one has it too, is your ability to create your own custom data screens, putting the information that you want exactly where you want it on the screen, whether that be charts, graphs, or just whizzy bits of data that you might want. And that brings me on to some of the data that is available on this Garmin X50, which reminded me when I first looked at it, a bit like the Sunto Eon Steel when that first came out, with its charts and graphs as you're moving along. But the difference between the Garmin and the Suunto is that these are actually usable and useful. One of the things I particularly like looking at is its dynamic depth chart, which tracks your actual depth like a depth profile that you might see after the dive, but in real time. So you can map this against your planned deco stops or deep stops and safety stops and see what your actual dive profiling is looking like on the fly. It may not have a brilliant purpose, but I kind of liked it. Like most dive computers in this marketplace, it does have a 3D compass, which is reset and calibrated by GPS, which is kind of cool. The advantage with this type of compass is that you don't have to hold it horizontal in the water. You can lift it up, and it's really useful for navigation. You can put your waypoints and it will show you how to navigate your reciprocal headings, etc., etc. Really good stuff. The piece de resistance that this dive computer has, and this is where Garmin is able to lean into their Navionics products, is that you can download global maps. So if you're going to dive in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, you can download a really detailed map of Southeast Asia, which will show you in an OCR type topographical map where your deep points are, where your entry points are. And they've been able to overlay this with a lot of dive site information that's been captured by a lot of divers diving in popular destinations with the MK and G series dive computers. I think that's a proper game changer. Oh hey, if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to splash down on the like button and do us a solid and subscribe. Now included as well is a backup dive light. Which is also on the MK3i, which, yeah, great, you've got a little light for dim conditions, but it drains the battery like hell, and it's no substitute for a proper backup light. Let's have a little talk about the SubWave sonar technology that Garmin are utilizing. It's different to the wireless technology that a lot of the other dive computer manufacturers are offering, and it gives you much greater distances over which you can connect with the transmitters. So typically, for full information, including tank pressure and air left, it's about 10 meters. What I do like, particularly for diving in limited visibility, is the ability to see how far away your buddy is. So it will tell you that your buddy has 1500 PSI and is 8 meters away. Although if it was telling you in PSI, probably feet. I hadn't thought that bit through. As I said, you can connect up to 8 transmitters, which means that if you're diving doubles or side mounts, you can have that information with you, but you can also connect on the doubles or side mount of your buddies or group of divers. Now, I personally have an issue with this, as it means that our reliance on knowing what your buddy's air is comes down to technology as opposed to good diver etiquette and practice. What's happened to clang, 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 how much air have you got? And having them check for you. And so I have some problems with that, but I can see it as a good bit of kit if you're into AI. One of the other things that this technology allows is that over a distance of up to 30 meters, you can send little messages to your dive buddies. Now, these are pre-designated and are typically limited to things like, are you okay? What's your air? Shall we end the dive? And your buddy can respond. Again, good if you're in limited visibility diving in the Hudson River or Lake Michigan or something. Out here, diving in the tropics, where we typically have visibility of greater than 30 meters, clang, 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 are you okay? It's probably saving me a few bucks. But fundamentally, I think that Garmin are entering into this full factor market, knowing that it's a significant market when you look at the success of the Perdix and the Petrel products, and the fact that both Aqualung and now Apex are in this space too. I can see that they're going to be a disruptor and they're going to grab market share very, very quickly. It's a good looking product. Heavy, but a good looking product. It does come with a rechargeable battery as opposed to Shearwater's AA replacement batteries, and it will last, maybe not with the screen on retina burning, but it will last a good week. Talking of the screen, underwater, bright screen. You can see it really, really well. Not as retina burning as a Shearwater product, but with it being an LCD, it's a little bit more challenging to see on the surface. And I found myself looking at the display with a t-shirt over my head just to make sure that I could see it clearly. It doesn't quite have the zazzle that a Petrel or a Perdix has. But ultimately, I think this is a great product. And if you're in the market for a full form factor dive computer and have a few bucks to spare, because, as I said, it's about 15% more expensive than the equivalent Shearwater product, it's worth having a look at, as you'll definitely have the most feature-rich dive computer on the boat. Thank you for joining me today as we took this quick dive into the X50i. Let me know below in the comments what your thoughts are on it and whether you would be tempted at $2,000 to trade up from your Shearwater or your Apex to this new Garmin. As I said, I absolutely would if it came with some way of connecting it to my O2 sensors on the rebreather. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Have a great day and stay diving.